It's time for the main event with Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. on Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia, this is the main event. Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here with you on this Tuesday, day after the national championship game, April 8th, 2014. 1 minute in front of 11, taking up until noon Eastern time today. We have a whole lot to do. NCAA championship. The Phillies open up their home opener today. Kyle Kendrick will be on the mound, and also Deshaun Jackson still being a you-know-what, and we'll get to that later on in the show. But Chase, how are you?
Doing great, Zach. Another fantastic NCAA tournament in 2014. It never fails to impress, and what a game last night between Kentucky and UConn. Props to Kevin Ollie. Shout out to UConn. They represented the American Athletic Conference, and now they're going to bring more money to the American Athletic Conference, and if the women's team can also win tonight, that brings more bread to the AAC. So a great run by Connecticut, a wonderful run also for Kentucky. I can't believe Calipari took 5 freshmen to the national championship game again. He has really embraced that one-and-done concept. If those players return, and I believe every player but Julius Randle is going to come back to Kentucky for another year as a Wildcat, that is a team that could win 1, if not 2, national championships.
And I look at Kentucky, and that was a team last night that you knew they're young. You knew that they were peaking at the right time, and they would have to break that 60-point margin. And give credit to UConn. They stuck in there defensively. They've been around that 53-54 mark when they played Michigan State, when they played Florida, and then last night you saw it at 54. And if I'm Kentucky, and give all the credit to UConn, Shabazz Napier went on a special run, very Kemba Walker-like. Kevin Ollie did a good job replacing Jim Calhoun. The whole sanctions, you obviously could tell at the end last night, that was still on their mind, but they were still able to go out there and win the game last night. So give them all the credit. They made the big plays down the stretch. But if I'm Kentucky, and Calipari tweeted this out this morning, that it stings more today than it did last night. And I understand he was proud of his guys last night. He did a very good job talking to Wolf after the game on CBS. I give Calipari all the credit when you sometimes see those coaches, when they lose in a big spot, not really want to talk to the media or be very, very concise with their answers. But a big reason why, if I am Kentucky, I'm sitting there saying, did we really lose that game tonight, was because of the missed free throws early on in the game, even late down the stretch. Those were a big killer in this game. And also, if I was a betting man and I would have said one thing before the game, Kentucky would have won the rebound battle. They didn't do that last night. Did they have a good low post presence last night? Yes. Did Young drive the lane at free will last night with 20 points? Yes. Did they block shots last night? Yes. But they got out rebounded, and especially in that final 5 minutes, you saw that UConn wanted it more, and they went out there and they extended possessions, and they got the second chance opportunities. And also, if I'm Kentucky, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, hey, there was 2 or 3 times in this game where it started to look like it was changing, especially how they ended out the half. You knew Kentucky was a good second-half team. Both teams were dreadful offensively to start the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the second half. But if I'm Kentucky, I'm sitting there with the 2 chances I had when we pulled within 1, Kentucky, and you couldn't find a way to get over the hump. Because if Kentucky was able to get over that hump last night and they were able to just take a 1-point lead, I think it's a very different ballgame, and I think Kentucky would have been national championship winners. But those young kids down the stretch, and give them credit because where they got, you could tell there was a lack of experience, and the experience on the UConn side is the reason why they're national champions today.
There's no question that Kentucky had more talent on that team, but you could see that they were much more inexperienced than UConn. Shabazz Napier has been there and done that. That's the second national championship that he won as a UConn Husky, and the fact that he won it in his freshman year. UConn was banned from postseason play last year, and he comes back for his senior year under Kevin Ollie when he was not sure if he was going to return for his senior season up there in Storrs, Connecticut. He comes back and has one of the best college runs out of any player in the history of college basketball. But the fact that Kentucky couldn't knock down shots from the harmless strip of the paint just 15 feet away from the basket. They went 13 from 24 from the free throw line. That's where the inexperience showed. And Kentucky could have won that game down the stretch. There was multiple opportunities for the Wildcats to hit big shots, but they failed to do so. Andrew and Aaron Harrison, they were made look slow by Shabazz Napier and Ryan Boatwright earlier on in that game. UConn came out with a pesky defensive presence, and that really bothered Kentucky throughout the first half. And Napier and Boatwright were just brilliant. They are a great guard combo in the backcourt. And Napier, the fact that he can hit these off-balance shots and make it look easy, step-back jumpers and coming off pick and rolls, stop and pop, and get the ball through the basket. And then you have Boatwright, who is the perfect complement to a point guard like Napier, who can make things happen for his teammates and also knock down shots. Those two were fantastic last night. And Kentucky early on wasn't able to establish momentum down low. And that's where Kentucky had the size advantage.
Which is odd.
And we talked about it on the show yesterday. I fully expected the Wildcats to dominate down low, but UConn ends up out-rebounding Kentucky by 1, which is a big storyline of that ball game other than the free throws. And UConn just capitalized and hit contested shots early on, especially late in that game. Niles Giffey hits a couple of huge three-pointers late in that game to keep on extending UConn's lead because Kentucky would come back, they'd inch back, and obviously we know that basketball is a game of runs, but Giffey, Boatwright, Napier hit some huge shots, and when UConn needed to come up with some big rebounds, whether it was Broma or Daniels, the Huskies were able to pull down clutch rebounds and extend possessions, especially under the 90-second mark late in the second half.
And we've seen guards, as of late, experienced guards, dominate this tournament. Last year was Siva and Smith, and I believe, obviously Napier's going to the NBA draft. He has to, and he's going to be a top 5 pick,
you see what LeBron
in my
tweeted
opinion.
Last night?
Yeah, he's the real deal. I did see what LeBron tweeted, but Boatwright, I believe, is going to go the Smith path. That what happened with Louisville.
Me too.
Win the
Reminds me a
national
lot of Russell
championship,
Smith, too.
and then come back the next year and try to do it again. And you have to give a lot of credit to Kevin Ollie. I understand after what happened with no NCAA appearance last year, he was able to come back and refocus these guys and make Shabazz Napier come back. But you heard it last night from Shabazz's mouth, and many people's mouths on UConn as well. A lot of credit has to go to Jim Calhoun, because still, these are his players. These were guys that he brought in. He retired. We understand what happened. He had some unfortunate health situations as well, but these were his guys. And last night, Kevin Ollie is his guy as well. And to see them winning a national championship, you got to give the credit to Ollie. You obviously got to give the credit to Napier and Boatwright. Boatwright also playing on a rolled ankle down the stretch. That was a real gutsy performance. And you saw Shabazz and also Boatwright going at it a little bit down the stretch. It was very reminiscent of what happened in the NCAA championship game in football between A.J. McCarron and his center, Barrett Jones, when they were late in that game. But that's what you saw. You saw a team that went out there. They wanted it more, and it was that simple. I'm not saying Kentucky didn't want that game, because those freshmen left everything out there possible on the court. But Jim Calhoun today is deserving of a lot of credit, and that's not 1, that's not 2, that's not 3, but that's 4 national championships in recent memory for the UConn Huskies. They are a powerhouse when it comes to basketball. Calhoun developed that program, and when he took over there in the mid-'80s, and he pitched the idea of the Big East Conference, and that was massive. And he said, hey, you could come compete with the Georgetown. You could come compete with the Syracuse, Villanova, and he got players to buy in, whether it was Ray Allen, whether it was Marshall, whether you go down and down on the great lineage of players that rolled through UConn, Emeka Okafor, Kemba Walker, and that is the beauty of it, that UConn has been consistent and dominant.
Yeah, Richard Hamilton, too, is also a great player
that
helped
mask, baby.
Put Connecticut on the map alongside Ray Allen, who was also a great player. Before Calhoun got to UConn in 1986, nobody knew that basketball existed in Storrs, Connecticut, but that program is on the map now. Zach, you mentioned it, 4 national championships, and now they can put themselves in the category with some of the elite programs in college basketball today. And just a big props to Kevin Ollie, because back on March 8th, when UConn lost to Louisville, 81-48, nobody would have expected UConn to come back, start playing well down the stretch. They went on a series of games there where I think they won 6 straight, had a decent showing in the American Athletic Conference tournament at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. But when we saw UConn take on Temple back on February 20th, they ended up winning that game by 13 points, but their offense was stagnant. And if you would have told me that UConn would end up winning the national championship back on February 20th, I would have thought that you were crazy. But after that big loss to Louisville, Kevin Ollie really got his troops together. He held that team together, and everybody really bought in. And it was one of the greatest runs I've ever seen in NCAA tournament history. Shabazz Napier, a fantastic run. He really helped his draft status, because if UConn wasn't able to go on this run in the NCAA tournament, I'm not sure Napier would be getting drafted in the first round. And LeBron James tweeted last night, I can't see a guard being drafted in front of Shabazz Napier. And I totally agree with him, because he's a great point guard. He set up his teammates. A couple of his passes, he was able to find mouse holes with those passes, and his ability to hit down contested shots, step back jumpers with hands in his face, he was just really, really good. But let's take a look at Kentucky. I'm watching Jim Nantz announce that starting lineup. Freshman after freshman after freshman. 5 freshmen in that starting lineup. And the fact that as an 8 seed, they were able to make it to the national championship, taking down number 1 seeded Wichita State, taking down defending champion Louisville, also taking down Michigan and Wisconsin. Fantastic perennial contenders that Kentucky was able to get past to get to the national championship. So what Calipari was able to do was, in my opinion, amazing, because he got those guys like Kevin Ollie to buy in. They almost took down Florida in the SEC championship game, lost by 1 point. They go on this tremendous run. And why this game was so intriguing was you had 2 hot teams with a plethora of talent, both buy in at the right time, get hot when they needed to, and make phenomenal runs. First time a 7 seed has ever won the national championship. And just looking at the talent on both those rosters, a lot of these players, both on UConn and on Kentucky, are going to be making some serious money in the NBA.
And I look at Kentucky, and I understand Calipari is an easy target. People don't like him because of the recruiting violations that happened at UMass and also at Memphis with Derrick Rose and the whole SAT incident. But he has perfected the rule of a one and done. And I hate one and dones. I don't like it. It has totally ruined the state of college basketball. And you heard Larry Brown talk about that when he was at the Liacouras Center this year when the SMU Mustangs were in town. But every year, Kentucky will have a consistent product as long as Calipari's there. He said last night he's not taking the Lakers' job. He has the best job in the country here. You're going to have those NBA rumors. I think he would be. It would be a name for him to go back to the pros. He already had that stint with the Nets. Stay at Kentucky. It's a great job. We all know that. And also, when I look at this Kentucky team, I was impressed, but the free throws really killed them, and that's not the first time free throws have killed Cal in a big spot, because you look back to that championship game up against Kansas with Mario Chalmers and the big shot that he hit. Free throws in that game were a massive killer.
Such an underrated aspect of the game.
Last night, if they just hit a few more free throws, they're winning this game. And I still can't wrap my head upon this, because I really thought they were making a run, and I really thought they were going to come out and be the better team in the second half. And that's why you got to give the credit to UConn. But there was times in the game where they were 1 point down. The players were standing up, clapping their hands, getting the fans going. Yep. You thought the momentum was going to change, and the shot selection was just absolutely brutal. And that's the reason they didn't win tonight. Bad free throws, bad shot selection when you were down by 1, and the lack of rebounding.
Yeah. If you're cool, calm, and collected at the free throw line, that can get momentum on your side. And Kentucky wasn't able to capitalize on that. But I was really surprised with 2 things. One, UConn's ability to run north, south, east, and west, because they didn't go up against such an athletic team like Kentucky, full of just elite athletes. And also, an underrated aspect of this game, UConn was able to limit Julius Randle to just 7 points. And I know Randall was dealing with a little bit of an injury. Not sure what that specific injury was. He was dealing with some cramps. But as soon as Julius Randle caught the basketball, there was a defender at his feet confronting him. And anytime Julius Randle tried to drive the ball to the cup, he was well defensed. And I think that UConn did a fantastic job guarding a big athletic guy like Julius Randle. He's 6'9", 250 pounds. His size at the next level does concern me a little bit, but I wasn't sure that UConn had a player that could guard him throughout the duration of 40 minutes.